It's Jeff Mayhew. It's Politics and Parenting, where we talk about politics, but we talk about it differently. Joe, how are you doing today? It's Politics and Parenting, where we talk about politics from the parent's point of view. So, what is the parent's point of view on Joe Biden? Right? I don't really talk about Joe Biden a lot. I haven't written about him a lot. Andy wrote that piece about the shadow presidency for Jill, but I don't know. Here's, what do you want to know what I think about Joe Biden? Let me tell you what I think about Joe Biden. So I think Joe Biden's like a little Buchanan, which is not good for him. Buchanan is ranked as one of the worst presidents ever, a little Pierce, if you will. And I actually just recorded a pod today with Andy, and he was talking about kind of Obama and how he came to, like, how his presidency arced with power and where he gave it and whatnot. And it sounds a little bit like Polk. And then you've got Biden following him, Pierce or Buchanan, and you had the strong, administrator in Polk. You had the charismatic leader in Obama, followed up by the compromise, the guys that career politician who would never have been able to get there on their own, if not for the country being in serious trouble. And here is Joe Biden. That's who Joe Biden is. And, you can try to spice it up however you want, but the reality is the reality. And, what's the parent's point of view with Joe Biden? The parent's point of view is, Dad, bro, you need to retire. Your grandchildren need to be able to see you, for the last few years of your life. It's sad. Like, the parent's point of view is sad. It makes me sad, which is why I don't talk about it, which is why I don't go after the guy, because that's not Joe Biden. And, you can say, well, you're not a doctor. You don't know what you're talking about. Okay, cool. I have eyes, I have eyes. And it's, I don't know. So recently we've seen this with, he did press conferences and different things over the weekend with the D-Day ceremonies. And in one of them, he mixed up Iraq and Ukraine. And another one, he was like listening to taps, and he like randomly turned around. And there was another moment where he was like bending down. And everywhere you go, you see Jill guiding him and guiding him and guiding him. And like, the White House wants to tell you he's fine. There's nothing wrong with him. And the people around him want to tell you that. But like, why should I believe them? Like, why should I believe them? None of their interests are served by saying this man has serious mental faculty problems due to age. And he probably shouldn't be doing this job, because it's a really hard job. But what about the people? And look, this has happened before, right? And in Andy's piece, when he talks about Woodrow Wilson, and he talks about Woodrow Wilson and his wife Edith, and how Woodrow was completely incapacitated, and Edith was running the White House. She was like shadow president, right? First female president was Edith Wilson, right? And Jill is the one out there on the campaign trail. I like to tell people the hardest job in the world is president of the United States of America. And the second hardest job in the world is campaigning to be president of the United States of America. And right now, Jill Biden is the one out there doing the View interviews. She's the one out there campaigning for President Biden. And when he's around foreign dignitaries and all that stuff, she's the one guiding him. And American citizens should be concerned by that. And let's step now to the other woman in the room, Kamala Harris. And let's do a little vice presidency history here. Colonel House Okay, Colonel House, that's not the right name. Thomas Marshall. Hold on. I got a quote here. So how was Edith Wilson able to become shadow president? Well, let's hear from the vice president of the United States during that time. His name was Thomas Marshall, and he said, "The awful responsibility that would fall upon me, I was resolved to do my duty, but I can truly say that I dreaded the great task." So this is the man who's vice president of the United States. His sole job, not really a sole job, he's supposed to oversee the Senate, but yeah, that's the whole thing. It doesn't really happen. His main job is to be president of the United States should something happen to the president of the United States. And he should want to be president of the United States. Like, you want a guy who wants to be there because he's going to do a good job when his time comes. And his time came, and he didn't do anything about it. He let the first lady do something about it. And here we have Kamala Harris letting Jill Biden campaign. She's letting Jill Biden be the person to guide, and she's not speaking up because, look, don't tell me that Kamala Harris can't tell that that's not the real Joe Biden, right? That's not the guy that, was debating her 4 years ago or whatever running for president. He's had significant changes since then. And he's just not up for the task. And Kamala Harris should, I don't know. Let's forget about Kamala Harris for a second. Let's look at it. If you're a Democratic Party and you're an average citizen and you're thinking, okay, Trump, Biden, and you're watching this, Democratic voters have eyes too. And you can say whatever you want to them, but they can still see that that person isn't the same person that beat Trump in 2020. And they really want to beat Trump, right? And so what should the Democrats do? What should an average citizen voter want the Democrats to do if you don't want Trump in office? And I think the easy answer is dump him. Dump him off the ticket. And you say, well, you can't really dump him off the ticket, blah, 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 blah. Well, I was watching this show the other day with my daughters. It's called Sabrina and the Teenage Witch. All right. And it's about this teenage witch who comes into her powers, and she goes to her aunts who are also witches so they can teach her about her powers. Strange. And so her friend goes into their closet, which is this portal to magician land or whatever, or witch land, and she gets turned into a grasshopper. And there's all these rules. When mortals enter, they must be turned into a grasshopper. And Sabrina's really upset about that. And so she's out in the hall talking to this lady who is the rule bearer. She's the one that has all the rules and all the rules. And she goes, "Don't you know about rule 784? And she goes, "No, what's that?" And she goes, "Loopholes. There are always loopholes to the rules. And find a way," right? We all have eyes. Joe Biden is not the guy. Get him off the ticket and put somebody up there that can actually beat Trump. If you're a Democratic voter, that's what you should be saying to your party. And more often than that, what we should be concerned as American citizens is the fact that Kamala Harris doesn't want to be president. Because if she did want to be president, I promise you, she'd be at the top of that ticket, right? She could 25th Amendment Joe Biden, right? She knows that he is not capable. She just needs to call a press conference and tell the American people, right? But she doesn't want to. And in reality, that's not how it would take place. She would just, in her circle of group, she would go to people and she'd be like, "Look, and I know that he isn't the guy, and he's not going to be Trump, and he isn't capable of this very hefty job. And so we owe it to the American people to put somebody there who can do the job." And let's say John Tyler would be president right now. Okay. So for those people who don't know, John Tyler was the first accidental president. William Henry Harrison, they died in 40 days, whatever, the Simpsons episode. So he dies and John Tyler becomes president. And there's not really clear set rules at that point about who becomes, or if the vice president becomes acting president, does he become president? Does he stay president? Or do they have another election? They're not really sure. And Jai Tyler's like, I know I'm the president and I'm not giving up this job. And therefore, it's the Tyler whatever precedent or whatever. And so now when when the president dies, the vice president becomes president, right? We've seen this with FDR. We saw it with FDR and Truman, Kennedy and LBJ. And let's compare this back to Wilson and Marshall. Okay. Marshall doesn't want to be president. Truman was put there to be president, right? Like, and in all reality, FDR was sick. Everybody knew he was sick. And they handpicked Truman because they felt he would be good in that role. And it was a good choice. Way to go, guys. And then Kennedy always thought he was going to die, right? Like he was I don't know, maybe his reading the history, I don't know. He kind of always thought he was going to die, and he wanted a guy who could be president. The Democrats wanted a guy who could be president because Kennedy had health issues too. And so, there's other politics that go into LBJ becoming president, but the reality is LBJ wanted to be president and was qualified to be president. LBJ wanted to be president. When he was asked why he took the vice presidency job, the most powerless job in the nation, he was like, 1 out of every 4 presidents die in office. I'm taking my shot, babe. I don't know. That's how I imagine LBJ would deliver that line nowadays. But sorry. Back to, look, if you're not going to kick Joe Biden off the ticket, you should at least kick Kamala Harris off the ticket and put somebody who wants to be president in that position. Okay? Like, I'm sorry, but that is a big qualification to being vice president. You need to want to be president. And I'm telling you, Kamala doesn't want to be president. And so I got a little deep in there with the parents' point of view and then the historian's point of view. But to be fair, I'm a parent historian, so I'm allowed to do that. Okay? And so that's Biden's age thing. Okay? And that's the Democrats' thing. That's what they should do. If I was a Democrat, that's what I would be doing. And I'd find those loopholes, man. They're there. I promise you. You can find them. And we all have eyes, as my friend Stephen Kent said. And you should do something about it. But let's separate the Biden faculty age issue with Biden, the actual legislature president. Now, when you're grading Biden's term, you have to grade on a curve based on the fact that this is unprecedented political division. Unique. It's very unique. And the other thing is he did the other age thing, right? So what he's doing may not be what he really would be doing if he was Joe Biden 15 years ago. Okay. So that's important. But he's still doing it. Okay. It's still happening. And when I see Joe Biden going out there and, President Michelle Obama. Okay. So she has said that line, when they go low, we stay high. I don't know. I should have written it down before the show. I just thought about it. It's the line where she's bashing the Trump supporters or just that whole right wing side of the party. And the reality is Joe Biden has just gone lower, right? Like when Trump goes low, he goes lower. And when Trump goes lower, he goes lower. And it's like, now I see Joe Biden out there saying that we have to save democracy, and I see political access, because this is when you are hearing whatever from Joe Biden, that's top down party politics. Okay, so that goes out to every other person running for office in the entire country. It's all interconnected. Okay, he's the top of the party. He's speaking the message because he's president of the United States. He's got the bully pulpit, and he's out there saying, we've got to save democracy. Okay. And he's talking about Trump, and Trump's a MAGA extremist. And then what are the people running for office? So this is like, you can see this. All right. So this is for call for Congress. I got it in the mail. Okay. She's running in District 10 as for the Democratic primary. And she's already attacking the MAGA extremists that she's going to face when she wins her primary. She's already, this is what her, like, she's not even like saying, here's what I'm going to do. I mean, she kind of is, but in a very aggressive, misleading way. And the problem is like, look, I'm a parent who happened to run in the District 10 primary a couple of years ago. I know the people running for office, and I can tell you that they're not extremists. I mean, I don't know all of them, to be fair. I know a couple of them. And look, I'm not even a huge fan, like nice people, but like I'm not voting for them for the most part. I mean, I'm probably going to have to if this is the other side, but like the reality is they're not extremists, right? They're intelligent people who could have an intelligent conversation with this candidate in a like actual fair place where it would be about actual politics and actual stuff instead of name calling, because that's all this is. Like, you're name calling before you even know who you're facing. And like, you've already labeled your opponent before you know your opponent. You have primed the people that are voting for you to hate the other side. That is not saving democracy, okay? That's trying to control democracy. That's a spoil system. That's power grabbing. And that is not good for this country. And so if you're afraid of Trump taking power and winning office and not letting go because he kind of tried to do that with 2020, like that's what that was. That he wasn't going to let it go, right? And so if you're like, he's going to destroy democracy, okay, well, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing to save democracy? Do you even understand like what you should be doing as a leader? Because I'm going to tell you, that's not what he should be doing as a leader. He should be out there calling people together, okay, every single day. It should never be save democracy if you're Joe Biden, because save democracy says we're losing, okay? And that's a problem. And a leader doesn't lose. A leader wins. They guide the people where they need to go. And so like, if you're like, okay, Jeff, but I thought it was serious. I thought that we do need to save democracy. Isn't that why you got involved in politics and all that? Well, I got involved to repair the republic. Okay. And see, that's the thing that frustrates me with Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Whenever they say, you have to vote for me because the other side's destroying America. But do you know what's actually destroying America? Right? Because here's the thing. Neither Donald Trump nor Joe Biden know what actually is destroying America. Are they political theorists? Do they read history? Do they think about these things in this way? Or are they just guys campaigning for office? Guess what? They're just guys campaigning for office, okay? They're not Reagan. They're not reading on their bus, doing some studying, trying to figure out how to solve the next problem, okay? They're probably taking a nap or watching TV. That's the reality. And look, you can knock this guy all you want, okay? Nobody likes Wilson, all right? Especially on the right. And you can say, well, he was really bad for America. You know what he did? He studied, he did his homework, and he knew how to manipulate the wheels of power. And the guys at the helm right now don't even understand how power works. And they don't understand what's really wrong with the country. And if you're Joe Biden and if you're president of the United States right now, what you want to be telling the American people is, look, you need to go talk to your representative. The problem with America is Congress, and it's been Congress for almost the entire time, okay? And there's varying different factors of why that is. And there's specific ones that could alleviate pressure almost immediately and start to repair our republic in the right direction. And a president who reads history and a president who studies politics and understands these things would be talking about that. They would actually be trying to solve this problem. I think about, so Andy wrote a piece about Grover Cleveland, and I wrote about Cleveland as well. And we talk about how he's an administrator, man. He believes the executive's job is to facilitate Congress's laws. And he's not in it to step over Congress and tell them what to do. And the reality is Congress has a lot of power that they don't use. And they've given it away in so many ways. And they put everything on the executive. And look, part of that is the executive taking it. But Congress has always been so easy to give it away and then concentrate the power up in Congress so only a few people are manipulating it. And that's a problem. That's a problem for American people. That's what causes division, is when too few people have power. And the entire concept of our republic was to make it reach as many of the people, the varying interest, right? It's Federalist number 10. It's right there. Federalist number 51, representation. It is the core basis of our republic. And the fact that Americans are so focused on the executive branch all the time, and the executive branch is happy to take the attention, is the problem. That's the problem right there. The media can't look away from the executive branch. The people can't look away from the executive branch. And I bet you nobody knows who's running for Congress. Nobody knows who's writing the laws or doing anything. Only a few people, only a few, maybe 1,000 people dedicated in your district. If you live in my district, which is District 10, there are typically around 16,000 people that decide who the primary opponent's going to be on the Republican side. That's a small number of people, okay? And then you're forced, if you're just an average citizen who just pays attention to the president and doesn't really pay attention into your congressional races, you were forced to choose one of the people that those 16,000 people picked. And you don't know why those 16,000 people picked that person. And you weren't there and you weren't paying attention. And then you're complaining that we have Donald Trump and Joe Biden. But what are you doing, right? What are you doing? And it's I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad, right? But the reality is, if you're a president of the United States, all those people who don't know that information, right? All that information I just said, you should be telling it to them. You owe it to the American people. If you genuinely believe that democracy is on the line, then go at the heart of the problem. Educate American citizens on electing better representatives in Congress. Look at our Congress, man. George Santos, Bob Menendez, it's a bunch of people for power. That's what it is. And there are varying different reasons of why that is. But my frustration as an average citizen, as a parent who just literally can feel the pressure from Washington, because I'm 35 miles outside of DC, can feel the heat from there, just gets uncomfortable one day sitting at home with his family and decides to pick up some books to try to figure out what is going on. I am a little frightened. Let me try to understand this a little bit. And you learn all this stuff and you go, that guy has a responsibility. At the end of the day, I know that every other person on that shelf knows that Joe Biden has a responsibility to tell the truth, to actually guide the Americans in the right way. Because in the moments where you have good leaders in American history, they don't shy away from telling it like it is, right? And you look at Kennedy, you look at Lincoln, but when you look at Pierce and you look at Buchanan, they point the finger in the other direction. If the thing is when you're a compromise candidate, the reason you're there is because the party acknowledges that they're going in the wrong direction and that the American people don't really want them there. But the other guy is so bad, they're willing to give them power. And that's basically what was happening antebellum period, except it wasn't like the other guy is so bad. It's that there was no other guy. right? Like there was no two-party system. It was the Democrats and everybody else. And everybody else couldn't get together and pick one person against the Democrats. And the Democrats had a very specific interest that they were focused on. And right now, we've gotten a candidate who they know or they think regular Americans will vote for, except now he's a lot older and his faculties are not all the way there. And regular people have eyes too. And he isn't there to uphold his responsibilities. He's there to hold a spot. He's there until the Democrats can figure out who the next person is. And the fact that they haven't been able to figure that out, they haven't been able to figure out how to beat Trump, is concerning for them. And it's concerning for the American people because, like I said, the people on that shelf behind me, they know they have a responsibility. I was just like the recording I did earlier today with Andy. I brought up Kennedy, JFK, and RFK, Cuban Missile Crisis. They've decided to intercept the boats and tell the Russians, no, you can't put nukes on Cuban soil. And it was a very tense moment. And when it was over, Kennedy, the brothers were talking together, and JFK, and again, paraphrasing here, he basically was like, dude, I had to do something. Like, bro, like that was scary. And what if I done nothing? What if the American people found out that as president, I knew the Russians were going to put nukes in Cuba, and I just was like, I didn't see it. I didn't do anything. I didn't tell anybody about it. No, he was like, I had to do something, and it was scary because I could have started a nuclear war, but that was my responsibility. And he was like, man, if I did nothing, I'd have been impeached. I should have been impeached. And RFK's like, yeah, you're right. If you did nothing, you should have been impeached. That's your job. That's why the people put you there. They concentrated all that power. Okay. So power gets concentrated up. It's a democratic republic. Okay. It's representative power, and people vote for representatives up the chain to power to a single individual. Okay. And this allows all the different varying interests to have a say in what's going on and who gets that power. And it allows power to be concentrated in one individual because then it is most nimble and adaptable in times of crisis. That's the entire design. And Kennedy understood that. His power was not his. His power came from the American people, and he had a responsibility to do the thing that they needed him to do in that moment to protect them. And Joe Biden isn't doing that thing. He doesn't belong to be in that position, and he shouldn't be there. And the Democrats who are supporting him, they either don't understand their history, they don't understand what's going on, or they don't care. And that's a problem too. And my personal opinion from the Democrats that I know locally, they know that Joe Biden shouldn't be there. They have eyes too. And I don't think the people leading the Democratic Party are going to be really happy in November when they've done nothing to fix this problem and Donald Trump is president. Now, I don't know, maybe that's what they want. That would be crazy. That would be crazy to want that. But at this stage of the game, what are they doing? Who's leading the Democratic Party? Who's making decisions back there, right? Like there's always party people making decisions. Like bad decisions are being made. Bad decisions for them. I mean, like they're going to mess it up. And as dad, because that's who I am, I'm dad. Literally my day is get up, take care of the kids, and rant about politics because I'm just so fed up about it, right? And I'm tired of people telling me that I just have to accept this. I have to accept Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Like I'm so sick and tired of it. You know, there is a third person running in this race, and his name is Robert Kennedy. And I've mentioned his dad and his uncle on this show, and somehow the press is still so focused on Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And the reality is, I know that Kennedy is kind of a little bit of a he said things that some people would consider pretty controversial. But here's the thing. He's smart. Like he's a smart guy. He reads books. Okay. It's clear that he reads books. It's clear that he studies. His voice sounds like gravel, which is a big problem for him. He is not going to go on television and sway the masses like his uncle did, or his dad for that matter. But look, the Kennedys, his brother and his dad, studied to this job. They studied to do the job, and every great leader studies to do the job, and that's what it takes to be a great president. And his dad and his uncle did that, and whether you agree with their politics or not, they tried. Okay. And I bet you this guy's studying. He sounds like he's studying. Okay. He sounds like he knows his stuff. The thing is, Joe Biden is not campaigning for Joe Biden. Jill Biden is the one out there on The View doing the interview. I'd like to see Joe Biden sit down for an hour with no real structure in front of 4 different people asking him random questions. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? I bet you, yeah, I'd like to see Donald Trump do that too. You know who would probably perform the best in that? Kennedy, right? Kennedy would be able to actually perform in that scenario because he's not nearly as toxic as Donald Trump, okay? There would be a moment where Trump would say something, or somebody would say something mean to somebody on The View, and somebody would storm off. Like, I'm not saying that it would be Trump storming off, but like maybe he says something mean and somebody else storms off, or vice versa. Or most likely, like, The View people wouldn't even do it, right? They'd be so against it. Or maybe they would. I don't know. I don't watch The View, but sorry. Clearly, I'm not the main demographic for The View, but I think it would be interesting. And I think it would be interesting if Joe Biden sat there, because he couldn't take that interview. That's why they sent Joe Biden out there. Joe Biden 10 years ago would have killed on The View. I'm sure Joe Biden did The View 10 years ago, okay? And they didn't put him out there because he's not the one really campaigning for his reelection. And Kennedy could. And put aside all his, craziness, depending on what you think. I want a person who wants to be president and who knows how to be president, okay? And I don't believe that neither Donald Trump or Joe Biden understand those two things for very different reasons. And if I'm an American citizen, I would be very upset about this. And I would call my representative, and I would call the people running for office, and I would tell them that they should not support either candidate. And if you're an American citizen, you know what I would tell you to do? At this point, I tell you to either vote for Kennedy or don't vote for anybody at all, okay? Because those two people don't deserve your vote. And power it's one of two things. It's either positive or negative. And when you decide to vote for one of those people, you are giving positive power to them. And everything that happens after that, that's on you, bro, because that's your responsibility that you gave them, okay? So you can either give them your power, or you can keep your power to yourself, and you can focus solely on your congressional representative, which is realistically our individual citizen responsibility anyways. And so Kennedy or keep your vote. Because what I think about Joe Biden, I think Joe Biden is a mediocre at best president. I think he's not really there in running the show. I think the job would have been too big for him even 15 years ago. I think he's a compromise candidate. I think he doesn't understand what his responsibilities are, and I don't believe he's capable of carrying them out. And I believe the people around him that are allowing it to happen are guilty of just not looking out for the American people. You ought to know better. Whether you do know or you don't know, you should know in that job. You have a responsibility. It's partially mine. I vote for these, although I vote no contest, right? I didn't give you my power, okay? Because you don't deserve it. And I did my homework, and I wasn't just going to give you my positive power. I kept that, okay? And I'm just one person. But you know what? The moment that Americans start to really invest, they're gonna keep that power to themselves, and they're either gonna vote for Kennedy or they're gonna vote for nobody. And you know what? Make Congress pick the president. Make Congress do something for the first time in their lives, because again, that's where the problem is. If we're American citizens, that's what we should be focused on. All right, I think that's enough. I've been ranting. I got some Sabrina the Teenage Witch references. I got to talk about Kennedy and Roosevelt and Wilson and Shadow President Joe Biden. And yeah, This was a great episode. If you liked it, try to share it. Drop a little comment. I'm sure somebody will be upset about what I said about Joe Biden, but just know that I still love you. And yeah, peace and love.